Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
Hey, welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California, at least half my day was. POR, SBR is my Twitter handle, and Ryan Holmes is RHOLM22. Got the crisp beard looking fresh. I see you out here playing. Let's just go out here and talk about the Raiders. So it was interesting because two of the most viewed shows we ever did was, first one was KJ Wright. Don't know why, but it's KJ Wright. And the second one was what we thought was the acquisition of Cliff Kingsbury being the OC of the Raiders. So now that didn't happen. And now we're with Luke Getsy, who was not really got high on anybody's list for that position with the Raiders, but here we are. As far as that goes, what are your thoughts about him and kind of the timeline here of when AP was hired, and now we're talking about the time period where he chose to talk to Cliff and get serious with Cliff, and then now with Getsy.
Yeah, I could do a whole show on this one topic if you want, but the first thing that comes out, the whole thing screams to me that AP didn't have like a guy that he wanted out the chute. Like when he talked to Mark Davis, it wasn't like, this is my guy, we're going to go get him. It seems like AP wanted to talk to a lot of different people, a lot of different styles of offense, and find someone that he felt wanted to be a Raider. So for, to me, I would have liked to see AP be a little bit more aggressive out of the gate. This is a very important hire for the Raiders, and I was hoping that he was going to have, this is my guy, let's go get him. I want to run this style offense. That clearly didn't happen. And he kept interviewing people. I'm not even sure Cliff was the slam dunk number one guy. They interviewed him. It took him a week to make an offer to him. And then we saw the holdup with the contract. And to me, a lot of people are making a big deal out of, well, the Raiders didn't go to a third year. That's why he went to Washington to Caleb Williams. Cliff Kingsbury had a contract with the Arizona Cardinals through 2027. He was owed over $30 million when they let him go. It's somewhere between $5.5 to $7.5 million, depending on which website you want to look at. So Cliff Kingsbury can't double dip. Like, he can't go in and get paid $6 million for the Cardinals and $4 million to be a coordinator and walk away with 10. So essentially he needed to find the right fit for him or get paid more than whatever he had yearly left on that contract. So let's just assume it was $6 million for argument's sake. Was he asking for more than that? We don't know. We don't know what the annual salary was he was looking for as a coordinator. I would tend to think that the holdup was he might have been okay on a 2-year deal, but he wanted more money than he was due from Arizona. So if he's asking for north of $6 million, I totally understand why the Raiders didn't want to go to a third year, because you're basically paying your offensive coordinator equal to or more than your head coach. And you really don't want to do that, especially if you get stuck with an extra year on the contract if it doesn't work out. I think they probably had Getsy and Kingsbury like 1A, 1B from the sound of it, and they didn't like Kingsbury enough to give him that third year and said, okay, we'll go in another direction. We'll take Getsy, because I don't think AP was that enamored with either candidate. So they saw them both kind of equally and said, okay, well, if you're not going to take what we're offering, we'll just take the other guy. Spending it to Getsy, I'm not a huge fan. I see a lot of people saying, well, this is a Shanahan guy. He's not. He worked under Matt LaFleur. He never worked under Kyle Shanahan. He worked mostly under Joe Moorhead, spent some time at Mississippi State, was a wide receiver coach, worked under Mike McCarthy as well with the Packers. He hung around. He did work under LaFleur. He never called plays under LaFleur. He has kind of that West Coast style offense. But this isn't someone like you're hiring away from the 49ers or even the McVay tree with the Rams, and they're running that system. This is kind of more a system that has some RPOs in it. It's got some West Coast concepts in it. They run a lot of screens. They do run the ball. They do run the quarterback. Even if you go back to his time at Mississippi State, the quarterback was the leading rusher at Mississippi State, I believe in 2017 or 18, whatever year that was. Fitzpatrick or Fitzgerald was the quarterback. He was their leading rusher. Goes to the Bears. Their leading rusher is obviously Justin Fields. Can they get the passing game going? We'll see. If you look at the tape, there are some nice things from Luke Getsy, and then there's plays where you're scratching your head where the spacing's way off. There's two receivers right next to each other. We don't know if guys ran the wrong routes, but he could never get the passing game going in Chicago. Now, is that Luke Getsy's fault? Is that Justin Fields' fault? We don't know. I do know that he was handed a first-round quarterback and didn't make him any better. So my holdup with Luke Getsy is the Raiders should be going out and getting a rookie quarterback in this draft. You can argue first round, second round, whatever, but you're handing Luke Getsy a prize quarterback that you spent a lot of draft capital on, and he just left a situation where he couldn't figure it out in the same exact situation. So can he succeed? Yeah, he can succeed with the Raiders if they get the running game going and he can bring the quarterback along, but there's no track record of him developing quarterbacks. I'm not giving him credit for Aaron Rodgers when he was in Green Bay. He didn't develop Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. Has nothing to do with Luke Getsy. Did he develop Devontae Adams? We can give him a little bit of credit there. Devontae Adams didn't come out of Fresno State as a heralded wide receiver prospect, and he turned into a Hall of Famer under Luke Getsy's watch. They also had Aaron Rodgers that helped in that development as well. So we'll see. If I had to grade it, I'd give it a C-. I'm not thrilled with it. I don't think it's the worst hire they could have made. It's definitely not the best. It does leave me wanting more from Antonio Pierce, knowing that he doesn't have a background on offense, and he's basically handing this offense over to Luke Getsy, who couldn't get it off the ground for 2 years in Chicago. You can argue Justin Fields. You can argue their offensive line was trash. You can argue they didn't have skill position players until this year when they went out and got DJ Moore. But he's going to be asked to score points and keep the ball moving and keep the ball, be able to convert first downs, get in the red zone, convert touchdowns, and not go 3 and out and put all the pressure on Antonio Pierce and Patrick Graham. We don't know if he can do that. He hasn't shown that he can. So from that perspective, I think it's a little underwhelming as far as a hire.
Yes, and I think underwhelming, lukewarm, all those terms kind of fit the hiring, and I think the reason, and I think the vitriol that we have that people are facing from AP fans online, it kind of just, they're mad that the pick was made, so they have to defend the pick. And it could be a bad pick right now, but as long as it's a good pick, when the real bullets fly and it's week 3 and you need a touchdown and all that stuff like that, and they're producing touchdowns, that can be something that we can look forward to. I think the one thing that I didn't like about the pick too was the red zone numbers as well. That was not. That's something where the red zone has been a kind of a brick wall for this Raider team for a long time. And I would like to see better red zone numbers if you're going to go ahead and get a new offensive coordinator as well. So that is just something that he just wasn't. He was one of the guys who Raider fans said, as long as we don't get Gase or Getsy, I'm good. And they ended up getting one of the guys who that we didn't want. And I think that, to me, like the pivot, and to show that, I don't know if AP really knew what he wanted to do offensively. It seems like it was 2 different kind of offenses, different offensive philosophies with the 2 guys. So it was like, okay, going air raid to whatever. So to zone to whatever doing what Getsy's doing. So that's something that really, that was something that I really had a problem with as far as that goes. And what we're doing now is just stating, so before the vitriol comes, I always want to say we are stating what is obvious and what has happened in the past. It does not mean that Lou Getsy cannot become a better offensive coordinator. It doesn't mean that the Raiders won't be a top 15 offense in the league. It doesn't mean those things won't happen. But I think for the most part, when this whole process started, we have to be honest with ourselves and say, hey, this is not one of the guys on that list who we wanted. There was a lot of Zach Robinson. There was a lot of the guy who went to Chicago,
Shane Waldron.
Shane Waldron, people like that. We talked about Darrell Bevel. I don't know if he even got a interview. My prediction of Eric Bieniemy being out of football this year is going to come true. I don't think he's going to have a job in football. So I know people wanted EB to get an opportunity with the Raiders as well too. But just putting it out there that, yes, this is what our thought process is now. Does not mean it can't be fixed in the future. but it does put a lot of pressure on this offensive unit and the head coach to get things done in the right direction.
Yeah, I think Eric Bieniemy is going to work for the Chiefs next year. He's already with them. Apparently, he was with the team
Or was he?
against the Ravens, and he's in Vegas right now with the Chiefs, part of team meeting. So they'll probably bring him back in some capacity. I think when you look around the AFC, you're in a division. First of all, in the AFC West, you're dealing with Patrick Mahomes. You have Jim Harbaugh now with Justin Herbert, and you have Sean Payton, who's won a Super Bowl in Denver. And you're going to war. You're basically taking a knife to a gunfight when you have Luke Getsy going up against those guys. And even if you make it out of the division, you're still dealing with guys like Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. You have to go through those guys. And the Raiders have to – the only way they can get out of this for Luke Getsy, in my opinion, they have to hit a home run on the quarterback. They have to nail the quarterback. They need an elite quarterback. The odds of them doing that this offseason, not great where they pick in the draft. So, if they can't land one of those guys and they have to take quarterback 5, quarterback 6, quarterback 8, whoever you say, or to go out and sign a veteran, use a ton of cap space, you're still behind the 8 ball in the AFC as far as catching those other teams. So in the grand scheme of this, 2024 looks promising. If they don't nail that quarterback pick right away, year one, AP might be in trouble because you're going into year 2 and they still probably don't have the answer if they don't find the guy this year. And then next year's quarterback class is not very good. That's a lot of pressure right now to get it right. So if the coordinator's underwhelming, the quarterback has to be able to overcome everything around him on offense and go down the field. And I don't know if the Raiders are in a position to answer that question. I do know this. He wasn't good in Chicago. Being a scout, they always tell us the best predictor of future performance is past performance. He hasn't performed in the past. He didn't last very long in Mississippi State, and he lasted 2 years in Chicago. So doesn't mean he can't get better. Guys get better. But like I said, if you want to know what the future performance will look like, the past is probably going to give you a good indication of that. And if you look at Luke Getsy, I would assume the Raiders probably are hoping for a middle-of-the-pack offense this year, which is kind of underwhelming when you think about the pieces they have on that offense, with Devontae Adams getting older, hopefully bringing back Josh Jacobs. But you have to remember that Luke Getsy does a lot of running back by committee. They had 3 guys in Chicago. They spent a 3rd-round pick on Roschon Johnson. They had Deontay Foreman. They had Khalil Herbert. They let David Montgomery go when he was a good running back because they just didn't want to pay him. They just went and found 2. They took a guy in the 3rd round. They signed Deontay Foreman. I believe he was with Carolina the year before. So I know the Raiders want to run the ball. I know AP wants to run the ball, but this kind of offense, they're going to need to get multiple backs involved. And I don't know if you can go out and pay Josh Jacobs what he's going to want to get paid and then tell him, oh, by the way, we're going to give you 15 carries and we're going to give Zamir White 8 to 10 carries. Like, do you really want to pay him and then do a workload in the backfield? That doesn't make a lot of sense. So to me, when they say run the football, I want Josh Jacobs back. If you're going to go with a rookie quarterback, get as much skilled players around him as you can.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if Tom Telesco is willing to break the bank. Luke Getsy from the past hasn't been a guy that's relied on one running back. The Raiders could probably use that money along the offensive line or get some secondary help. They need another tight end. They need a defensive tackle. So we'll see. This is going to be very interesting when they get to free agency. But it's not to say the Raiders can't go out and do well. I would just say they're behind the 8 ball right now when looking at the rest of the division, let alone the AFC.
Can you repeat?
And that offense that defense, that defense still has to play as a top 5 defense just to give them a shot. If they're running with a rookie quarterback and Luke Getsy, an offensive coordinator. Like, this team's not going to go out and score 24 to 30 points a game.
So that line you said about scouting, can you repeat it one more time before I go?
Which line?
About performance?
Yeah, the best predictor of future performance is past performance.
So the last 2 play callers for the Raiders was Josh McDaniels and John Gruden, right? So, and Greg Olsen, a little sprinkle of Greg Olsen. Did John Gruden come back and just set the world on fire? I know he just kind of he did his creatures of habit, the same kind of stuff. Haas Juke came back, right? All the stuff that Josh McDaniels wants to run, he ran it. He ran his stuff, and it still didn't kind of pop off, right? So I think that if those 2 guys, creatures of habit, he has to break his habits, which is hard to do, break the creature of habit part of it, and actually perform at a higher level. And he can perform at a higher level, but is the young quarterback going to see what he sees? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Is he schemes up somebody who's wide ass open and he doesn't hit him right in his chest, or he doesn't get the ball out on time and it's late. Those are the kind of things that you have to worry about. And I think as far as you mentioned the young quarterback, I mean, that is really a tough situation. Like, if you draft a guy like JJ McCarthy, is he a guy who's going to sit for a year? You know, is Bo Nix, if Bo Nix is the pick,
I would argue sit for who? But who on the roster would you sit him for?
You're not lying about that part.
Yeah, there's no John Kitna for Carson Palmer to sit behind. There's no
it's day one,
there's no
right?
Alex Smith for Patrick Mahomes to sit behind. Like, they don't have that guy on the roster. So now you're talking about signing
no Gardner Minshew
free agent veteran
on this team.
I mean, yeah, that's basically what you'd have to do. You'd have to go out and sign a guy like Gardner Minshew and start him for a year, or Jacoby Brissett and start him for a year. But then what do you do with Aiden O'Connell? Like, the replacement has to be head and shoulders better than Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah.
And you want to keep Aiden O'Connell around because he showed that he can be a serviceable player on the roster and a backup quarterback that can come in and play 2 or 3 games if you need him to. To me, like, a lot of the blame, everyone wants to point the finger now at Justin Fields. Well, Justin Fields' development is tied to Luke Getsy. That's on Luke Getsy's resume. Like, if Justin Fields isn't seeing open guys and making the right reads, that's on the offensive coordinator as well, because he's calling plays that the quarterback's not seeing. He had 2 years to sit down, go over film, and develop this guy, and he just couldn't develop him as a passer. Now, that could be on Justin Fields. We don't know. We're about to find out, because I would assume the Raiders, even if they stick with Aiden O'Connell, he's still kind of technically, he's only played 9 or 10 games as a quarterback. He's still a young quarterback in NFL terms. So I would just rather have seen a guy that's had some success developing quarterbacks. And that's why I was more in the Cliff Kingsbury, because every quarterback Cliff Kingsbury's been around has been successful. You can go all the way back to his days at Houston with Case Keenum. Then Johnny Manziel wins a Heisman. Then he had his hands on Baker Mayfield for a minute. Then Patrick Mahomes, then Kyler Murray. Like, everywhere he's gone, the quarterback has been a good player.
Yeah. Yeah, and the quarterback's important last time I checked. So, you got to make it.
I'm rooting for Luke Getsy.
Yeah,
let's score 24 game. I'm all in, but
yeah,
we'll see.
And also too, like, the whole thing, the 3-year thing. Like, I mean, isn't what year is Patrick Graham going into as far as the coordinator goes?
It's 3rd.
Oh, okay. I know people are like freaking out. Like, all of a sudden, they was like freaking out about what year coordinators, how many years coordinators get, and then they usually get 3 years a lot of times.
I had a lot of people reach out to me and were like, "Well, why didn't they just assume that the coordinators get the same contract length as head coaches? Like, head coaches get 4, 5, 6 years. Coordinators 2, mostly 3.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think, and this is just pure speculation, I don't know. My guess is Cliff Kingsbury was asking for a pretty hefty salary, and that's why the Raiders were hesitant to go to year 3. And I sent this to you as a text. If it was 3 years and he wanted $3 million a year, $9 million commitment's not much. But if it's 3 years and he wanted $7 million a year, that's $21 million. That's a huge difference. So we don't know what he's asking for in an annual salary. We do know that he's owed $30 million by the years on the Cardinals.
No question about it.
And he has offset language in his contract, so he can't double dip. So he's working for free if he's making less than what the Cardinals are supposed to be paying him.
And nobody works for free in National Football League. Nobody works for free. Passing game coordinator versus OC. So I heard the whole thing about, like, I think we went over it a little bit, but I just want to make, so for some people who wanted to say Luke Getsy, he was dialing up everything in Green Bay, like, he's not calling the plays. I think passing game coordinator definitely helps the offensive coordinator, like, design and talk about offense and go over what they're going to see defensively for the next opponent, but it's not the same as OC.
No, the offensive coordinator is calling the plays. That Luke Getsy was not the offensive coordinator in Green Bay. He was the passing game coordinator and wide receiver coach. So essentially what a passing game coordinator is, he's usually going to be either the quarterback coach and or the wide receiver coach. So in this case, it's the wide receivers coach. So his job as the passing game coordinator, he should know all the wide receivers on the roster, their strengths, their weaknesses. And his job is to go to the offensive coordinator and say, here's some concepts we can run. These are the route combinations we like. This player works best in this spot. This player works best in that spot. And give ideas to the offensive coordinator. Like, hey, I think we can use Trey Tucker on these kind of routes. Let's move him in, let's do 3-by-1 and put him in the slot is the number 3. Or it's situational stuff. Maybe it's, he's helping out with red zone or he's helping out with third down during the week, but on game day, he's not involved in any sort of play calling. And then when you're passing game coordinator for a Hall of Famer, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, they make you look a lot better than you are. That's not to say that Luke Getsy can't be good, but Luke Getsy's track record as a play caller suggests he's going to have a little bit of RPOs. He's going to have a quarterback that he's going to rely on to run the football, and he's going to call some screens. He might take some shots down the field, and then he's going to want to run the football. The Bears ran the football at a very high clip. They threw the ball. I think they were in the bottom 2, if not the lowest amount of passing attempts in the league. So they just didn't throw the football very much.
It'll be interesting. So we will see if the Raiders can zig while everybody else is zagging, because everybody else is throwing the football a lot more than the Raiders might do this year. AP, are you worried about AP's the deal? Like, I mean, AP, we don't know how many years it is. We don't know what the contract is, but usually, you get some like leaks about it. I'm not sure if it's 3 years or 4 years. I just don't know. I mean, I think Al Davis, Mark Davis went from 10 years to 6 years, and he might just be like, hey, I'm just not gonna go crazy with the commitment here as far as that goes.
I'll put it this way. My guess is 3. If it was 5+, bet your ass the agent would have leaked that to the media.
Yes,
so
exactly.
My guess is it's a 3, maybe 4. It's not longer than that.
If it's
which
3,
is fine,
yeah, which is fine. If it's 3, should AP have been like, yo, like, should at least should he just try to like kind of push for 4 years, only because it's a little bit more time. It's you got first time coaches getting 6 years. I mean, all depends on the situations. Every situation is different. He was the clear cut person. They didn't interview anybody of substance for that job. So when you think about like that part of it, you want to push that envelope, or you want to just, or you think the Raiders might have went somewhere else if he did that?
No, I think AP's going to bet on himself, and he said that when he got the interim job. His whole intention was to get this job. This is his team. He is a true Raider, and I don't think he's worried about whether it's 3, 4, or 5. In his mind, he's going to be successful and he's going to win. It doesn't matter. You could have probably given him a 1 or 2 year deal. He was going to take it. Because AP wants to be in Vegas, and he's kind of mentioned that too about players and coordinators. Like he wants guys that want to be here. So when Cliff Kingsbury, there was a little bit of hesitation on the contract at 2 years. It makes sense why AP's like, well, then he doesn't want to be here. Let's go to the next guy on the list. So we'll see. Hopefully, AP can get some free agents in there and sell them. Hopefully he can get some draft prospects in there. And then if he falls in love with a guy, hopefully he can get Tom Telesco to go get his guy. And we'll see who that is. But the Raiders have to get a quarterback, or else none of this matters.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So well, you and I both read the letter that AP put out. I thought it was great emotion in it. Like he definitely, like I said, like this is the things I like about AP, especially is somebody once he stopped being a player, he went to TV for a little bit, and then he said, I want to coach. He went back to high school to go coach. Then he went to college, and then went to the pros. And I appreciate him doing that, because he probably could have tried to stay in the league just for off the rip, but he kind of went back to the roots of high school. But I think the first thing we said afterwards is great. I mean, the letter is great, but we just need a quarterback. Because like everything, his dream of being the next great Raider head coach, it all depends on that decision. And what they do. And I'm not sure if they're going to be, I don't know, I'm not sure if the draft is going to be chalk, if it's going to be 1, 2, 3 quarterbacks or what, but they definitely need to do whatever they can to get a quarterback in the top 3. If they can't get the top 3, they need to go get the next one. And, if that Tennessee spot comes up at number 7 and, somebody drops, or they feel like they need to go get JJ or get Knicks or get whoever, it seems like they really need to just go out and do whatever they can to make that move because his success is tied to it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Spencer Rattler talk the last couple days after the Senior Bowl, like second, third round. Like I sent out the list of the guys in the second round. You guys can look at that list. I tweeted it out. Other than Drew Brees, it's pretty lackluster.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you just take a second or third round graded guy in the first round. Like, there's going to be 4 or 5 quarterbacks that go in the first round. The Raiders just have to decide, do they like the fourth or the fifth guy? They're going to need to know what the cost is to get up. If for some reason, you know, in New England, I know a lot of people say they need a quarterback. That roster's bad. That's not a good team. They don't have a good offensive line. They don't have skill position players. Maybe they just go out and get Marvin Harrison, take the best player on the board, and wait on the quarterback. They're nowhere near competing. They're in a division where they have the Dolphins, they have the Jets are going to have Aaron Rodgers back. The Bills are there, so maybe they wait on the quarterback because that New England team's not going to be competitive for the next 2 or 3 years. So maybe, or they trade down and say, you know what, give us all these picks, we'll get a quarterback in the next 2 or 3 years. They need a complete reset in New England. So I could see them doing it. I could see the Bears. You know, maybe the Bears do decide, hey, we're going to stay with Fields. Let's flip the first pick to Washington. Let's go to 2, and let's take Marvin Harrison. So we have Marvin Harrison, we have DJ Moore, we have Cole Kmet, we have this stable of running backs. We've invested a lot of picks, Tevin Jenkins, Darnell Wright in the offensive line. And let's get our quarterback at 9. Maybe they like one of these other guys, or maybe they wait and they get a guy in the second round. So I could see them doing that, and you know, maybe get a guy in the second round to compete with Fields. And if Fields isn't the guy after this year, then they have another guy waiting. So that's an option. But I do think right now we say they're going to go 1, 2, 3. There are many scenarios where that isn't the case, and if that isn't the case, and you start talking about teams at 4, 5, and 6, where you start talking about the Cardinals have Kyler Murray, the Giants have Daniel Jones, who they just gave a big deal to. The Chargers at 5, they have Justin Herbert. None of those teams need quarterbacks, so they could be landing spots if teams want to get in front of Atlanta, Minnesota, Denver can move up. So the Raiders could be in play at 4, 5, and 6 if one of those quarterbacks start. And if those do, I'll say this as well. If those guys go 1, 2, 3, that fourth guy won't be there at 13.
No.
So someone's going to jump in front of the Raiders. Someone's going to get in the top 10 and take that fourth guy. So now you're talking about quarterback 5 or 6. Are the Raiders willing to take the 5th best quarterback in this draft? Now, in normal drafts, and I've seen a lot of people tweet this out, well, the 3rd quarterback in the draft always sucks. Well, this is a different draft. Like the top 3 guys in this draft, in most drafts would go 1 or 2, and almost every draft. The 4th guy in this draft might go 3. He might go 8 or 10 in this draft. So each draft is different. The quarterbacks are different. This draft does have the potential. If you just line these guys up, the top 6, 7 quarterbacks in this draft, pretty good players. Now, they're not all going to be franchise guys.
Yeah.
But 4, 5, and 6, maybe 7 could fit within some of these offenses. And the Raiders, I'd love for them to get a guy that turns out to be elite. But if they get a guy that turns out to be, you know, a solid above average quarterback in the NFL that can move around a little bit and you play really good defense, you can win that way too. And I look at this as well because everyone's like, we're close. The Raiders are close to winning the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are going to be better next year than they are this year. They're going to go out and spend money on a pass catcher. They're not going to let Chris
100%.
Jones and Snead walk out the door.
100%.
The Chargers are going to be better next year. The Broncos, if they don't get a quarterback, I'm not worried about the Broncos. But if the Broncos find a way to get a quarterback, they're going to be better next year. So everyone wants to think the Raiders are the only team in the AL West that's going to get better next year. Well, I got news. I think the other 3 teams are all going to get better too. So the Raiders have to get exponentially better if they want to compete for the division. And because to get to this team where they need to go, you need to win 10, 11 games. Yeah. Like this isn't about winning 7 or 8 games. And if you have a rookie quarterback, that's a daunting task in and of itself, let alone going through that division.
Yeah. Antonio Pierce was the linebackers coach, now the interim head coach, now the head coach of the Raiders. They just added Mike Caldwell, who is going to take over for the linebackers and all that stuff like that, run game coordinator. Eagles, Cardinals, Jets, Tampa Bay, and then last year with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So a lot of experience there. He started coaching in 2008. So another very experienced coach on the staff to help AP. And all that stuff like that. You have him. Marvin Lewis is on the staff, along with Patrick Graham. So you got some knowledgeable heads on that in that situation. So we'll see if that helps continues to help the Raiders go here. I know people ask me a lot about that running game coordinator situation. Like it's just, I mean, it's just another title. You're seeing it in college, you're seeing it in pros now. Along with assistant head coach, all those things like that. So, but yeah, but they did need a linebacker coach, and they got a guy who used to call plays defensively in the National Football League. The Jaguars did struggle last year defensively, so that's why he was free. But just somebody who gives him a little bit more experience there.
Yeah, he's been around some good defensive minds throughout his career, working his way up. But anytime you can get a guy that rose to the position of coordinator and called plays,
Yes.
and now you're putting him back into a position coach, that's good. This is a guy that's had success in his coaching career. Run game coordinator, he's just going to help out, in first, second down, run defense, fits with the linebackers, maybe some fronts that he likes that he could help Patrick Graham and say, hey, this is what we ran here. I like this in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Just another guy that can bounce ideas off of Patrick Graham. Patrick Graham's still going to call the defense. It's his defense. But these titles are just kind of thrown in there to help these guys out because they don't want to go from defensive coordinator back to just linebackers coach. You see assistant head coach thrown around. You see this started on the offensive side of the ball. Passing game coordinator, running game coordinator, offensive coordinator. Now you're seeing it on the defensive side. The Raiders had a passing game coordinator last year, Jason Simmons, who it sounds like is on his way out because they allowed him permission to go. I believe the Commanders are talking to him, so the Raiders may lose him. But they have gone out and added, a couple of secondary coaches as well this offseason with Ricky Manning, and I believe Gerald Alexander was the other one. So we'll see. I'm really curious to see who the O-line coach is going to be because if you look at it now, all of the experience on this coaching staff that they've added is on the defensive side, and that's where the Raiders were good last year. They need that on the offensive side, and they haven't really added that. So hopefully they can go out and get a veteran O-line coach that can come in and help these guys out. If you look at the offensive line in Chicago, they got a lot of big run blocking type of guys. And they drafted Tevin Jenkins, who's a big guy. They drafted Darnell Wright, who's a big monster right tackle. So the Raiders might be going more towards that power run game offensive line, which would probably lead me to believe that Andre James is probably not coming back. Jermaine Illuminor doesn't fit that mold either. Thayer Mumford's more of that kind of player. And I don't know what they're going to do at the guard spots if they move Dylan Parham inside, but they can go find some big meaty guards to move bodies around on the inside, or they can just take the tackle out of Oregon State in the first round. That's what they decide they want to do, and just have him move people.
Yeah, should be interesting to see what happens there. Let's see anything else on the coordinator stuff. We can just go to like the little chatter from the Senior Bowl about the quarterbacks. I know Nix and Penix, and watching this offense on all 22, I'm not sure Penix would be a guy in this offense, but maybe he probably could run it. But they didn't play well there, and somebody asked me like, hey, what is that like I want to know how we feel about how do we feel about that? Them not playing well in that moment in the Senior Bowl or like during that week. And for me, and I'll let you go after that, is just like everything they do counts. You know what I mean? Like from the time they, from the first snap of their first play at Indiana till now, like it counts. But I mean, I think there's enough game tape for these guys, and they're gonna have the combine, you're gonna have their pro days, where that we're gonna see we're gonna see what they are. Excuse me. People are gonna know what they are pretty much before they draft them. There's so much tape on both of these guys. They both were in college for a long period of time. I'm not gonna trip up a little bit too much on that. On what happened in the Senior Bowl, because it's just like it can be a little bit of a mess there. But I mean, but it is part of the story because everything they do counts.
I would say in the overall evaluation, an all-star week like this is a very small piece of the evaluation in that these guys all come from different college systems. Most of them are not pro-style systems. They're thrown into a practice. They get a couple of days to look at a playbook with verbiage they don't know, they've never heard. Then you throw them on a field, and you have these team periods where they're throwing to receivers they've never thrown to. And even when they're throwing on air on the one-on-ones, Like they don't know how these guys like to run routes. They're kind of trying to throw the ball on time. You're really there to get up and close. What does the body look like? You know, how much stronger, how much weight can we add to this guy? How does he move? How athletic is he? How does the ball come off his hand? How does he spin it? Those things you can see that on tape, but like when you see it up close with your eyes, it's much different to get a visual representation of what these players can do and see what their physical traits are. To me, it's not a big deal, you know, that they were kind of up and down in that environment. You'd expect them to be up and down in that kind of environment because it's 3 days, quick practices. We're spending a lot of time meeting with teams. There's a lot of stuff going on off the field of the Senior Bowl as well that we're not there. We don't see all that. So game tape first and foremost. Can Michael Penix play in this system and Luke Getsy's system? Sure, he can, but like he's not going to be your leading rusher. And if they run some RPO stuff, he's not going to run with the football very often. It might be once out of every 20 times. I wouldn't, and it's not going to be explosive runs when he does. I think in this kind of system, like I like Michael Penix. I like the way the ball comes off his hand. I like how quick he gets rid of it. He does have issues when he's on the move. He does have accuracy issues when he's off of his spot, but he can throw the ball down the field and create explosive plays. The better fits in this system when you start talking about Luke Getsy. If it's going to be RPO based, it's going to get the ball out of the hands quick. It's going to be some screens, a lot of underneath stuff. I know AP said he wants to go vertical. That's not what Luke Getsy does. And then to me, it's more, you're now talking about Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, those kind of guys. Drake May would be a good fit in this kind of offense. Jaden Daniels. Michael Penix in this offense would probably take a step behind those guys for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And I like Penix.
It comes out quick. It's really. I mean, he probably had the best. Probably the best arm. Anything that make of like some like him, like not participating in the game and leaving early, or you know, is it that just you think just the agent just said, you know, let's get out of here, or like what do you? Who knows?
To me, it would bother me a little bit that he went there and went through it and left. As far as we know, he wasn't injured. Now, if he had an injury, it's totally acceptable. But if he wasn't injured and he just pulled out like the day before the game, I'd want to know why. Like if I was a team, I'd sit down and ask him, why did you do that? Now, people can speculate. Maybe he didn't pick up the plays as quickly. It's a new verbiage. It's completely different than what he ran at Washington, and he just didn't want to look bad in the game. But we don't know. But it is a question. Like, why did he not go through and play in the game after going through the practices? And then the other guys didn't play much either. I mean, I think Nix didn't play very much. I didn't watch the game, but just following like what happened, and I watched all the practices. But it sounds like, you know, the lesser known quarterbacks took a majority of the snaps in that All-Star game.
And the practices were more exciting than the game was. So I mean, if you're gonna go there, a friend of mine.
I'm glad I missed it.
Yeah, a friend of mine went, and he went like for like the last day. Missed the last practice because of his flight, and then went to the game. He was like, "Damn, I should have came for the week instead because the week was much better." So a lot of good offensive line play and stuff like that too as well. Some of these got some big boys over there who really make a name for themselves on the offensive line. So we'll see what the Raiders do as far as that goes. Super Bowl pick. Unless you have anything else to go on Raider wise.
No, I just think it's going to be interesting to follow these quarterbacks and what happens. I think, and I'm kind of in the JJ McCarthy camp to a degree. I know that they didn't ask him to do a lot at Michigan, but he didn't need to do a lot. And Jim Harbaugh called the game to win the game, and that's ultimately what you wanted to do. Yeah. He does have the physical traits. Like he's going to run fast. He's going to run in the high 4.4s, low 4.5s. He has arm strength. He can spin it. My question with him is how big is he? Is he 6'3", 200, or is he 6'1.5", 185? Like we don't know. So I think the measurement when he gets to the combine is going to say a lot. Like, is this more Bryce Young frame, or are we talking 6'3" and he's got a chance to get to 215, 220 if you put him in an NFL weight program for a year? So that's a big, especially if the offense is going to ask the quarterback to run the ball and handle responsibilities in the run game. If he measures 6'1.5", 185 pounds, that's going to be a problem. Jaden Daniels is in the same spot. He's going to measure 6'3.5", 6'4", 200. So he's a thinner frame guy as well. So we'll see what happens there. But I do ask this: the other guys have had a lot more playing time. They're 20, 22, 23, 24. Some of these guys.
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy's 20 years old right now. and he just won a national championship, and he did enough against those teams to win. Do I think he's going to come out and be like an all-world quarterback? I don't. But can he win how AP wants to play, which is run the football, play action, and then have a quarterback when things break down that can run? He is mobile.
Yeah, he is mobile.
He can get the ball outside. He can drive the ball down the field. He just hasn't been asked to do it a lot. And then, what is Nick's, like 24, 23, 24? Like he's been around. It seems like he's been around forever. You have to ask yourself as a scout, JJ McCarthy's 3 years younger than these guys. What is he going to be like 3 years from now? Like if he got to stay in college for 3 more years, would he be better than those guys are? My guess is he probably would be. If he's got to stay in school for 3 more years. So it's not about this year. I think if you want a guy that has to go in and play day one, you probably lean Nix. But if you're looking for the long haul, who's going to be the best guy down the line? I would say it might be McCarthy. The issue you're going to run into is if you take this guy in the first round and you sit him for a year or sit him for 2 years, now you're only getting 2 years before you have to pick up that fifth-year option. You're not going to get a lot of time to evaluate him on an NFL field. So it's a tough question to ask. Thank God the quarterback contracts aren't what they were in the Jamarcus Russell days or the Sam Bradford days. So if you do miss here, it's not the end of the world. And in a perfect world, hopefully, I think one of those 2 guys will be gone by the time the Raiders get to 13. I think one of them will be there. I couldn't tell you which one right now. But I do think Nix or McCarthy, one of them will not be available because I just don't see them. If the other guys go 1, 2, 3, I don't see both of those guys getting past the Falcons, getting past the Vikings, and getting past the Broncos to get to the Raiders. So we'll see. And Kirk Cousins could take one of those teams out. Justin Fields could if he goes to Atlanta, take them out. So if you're a Raider fan and you want a first-round quarterback, you want Kirk Cousins to re-sign in Minnesota. You want Sean Payton to go out and sign a veteran quarterback. You want Justin Fields to go to Atlanta. So you want the Giants to stay with Daniel Jones so that the Raiders will have an opportunity with less teams in front of them that need a quarterback.
Yeah. Somebody got to drop. For the Raiders to get that. So yeah, Super Bowl pick.
Yeah, to me, this is it should be a good game. I just think that I'm going to go with the better quarterback in this game. I'm going to take the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. For me, I do know Patrick a little bit. I scouted him in high school. So for me, like I always lean. I know he's a Chief, but I do like the guy. I think he's the best quarterback in football. And I as much as it pains me to see the Chiefs win a Super Bowl in Las Vegas, I think it's going to be a close game. I think Patrick Mahomes is the difference at the end of the day. The Chiefs defense is just really good right now. I think Ladarius Sneed can take out one of those 2 wide receivers, and then they can scheme a way to guard the other guy. Let's say it's Debo. They could take Ayuk out, guard Debo, or maybe they just put Sneed on Debo and have him follow him around. We'll see. If the 49ers can run the football, though, this is a different game, and they might be able to, but they're going to have to commit to running the football against this Chiefs defense. If Brock Purdy drops back to throw the ball in this game or they fall behind, it's going to be tough sledding for the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, for them to fall behind 3 straight playoff games, and have to win that could be a tall order, especially against the Chiefs. The Chiefs and Spagnuolo want you to they want to get ahead and they want to blitz the hell out of you and they want to do all those things. So they have a lot of free rushers that get to the quarterback. I'm gonna go with San Fran. It's just a weird pick here. I mean, I think everything is going in KC's direction. Like San Fran is not even playing good defense. The Niners are not even playing good defense in these playoffs at all. I don't see they were very fortunate to come away with victories against Green Bay and the Lions. I think if they the one weakness against the Chiefs is that people just stop running the football. I don't know why they stopped running the football, but you look at when they play Miami the first time this year, Miami's running the ball for almost 5 yards a carry, and they stopped running the football when they got to the red zone. It was just baffling me. So McCaffrey is going to be difficult to stop. McCaffrey could end up being the MVP of this game, catching the ball out of the backfield and also rushing the football. So I'm gonna go with Niners win it, and the Niners win a close one. And they are. It doesn't get any better for me because I don't want to see Niners win a trophy in Vegas either. But we had no choices besides that one, so it's like it is what it is.
I do think Spagnuolo is going to load the box and try to stop the run, and then he has corners to where he could probably get away with that.
Yeah.
early in the game and just see if it works. Now, if they give up some explosives down the field, they may have to change it up. But I don't think Spagnuolo is just going to let them run the ball down the field. He knows that's their weakness. They did it against and it's funny that we talk about that because if you look at the AFC Championship game, the Ravens just didn't run the football. But if you go back and listen to John Harbaugh after the game, he basically said they were calling RPOs. And the Chiefs gave them all these different looks to take away the run. So they ended up throwing on basically every RPO they called. They ended up having to throw the ball because of the look the Chiefs gave them. So maybe the Chiefs do that here. But Kyle Shanahan's going to have to stick with the run. He can't just let Brock Purdy drop back 35 times in this game. If they do that, they're going to lose.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, Raider Nation. Lou Getsy in the building. For this time, it's on the web. It's on the website. It's on Raiders Twitter. So,
as the kids say, it's mid.
It's mid. It's mid. It's mid. It's mid. It's mid. No cap. All right. Later, y'all. Take care, Raider Nation. Peace.
Take care.